Picture this moment with me. A hospital corridor. Tuesday afternoon. People everywhere, doctors rushing between rounds, nurses changing shifts, visitors clutching flowers and get-well cards. The kind of busy space where everyone minds their own business. Then suddenly silence. A woman in expensive heels stands frozen, her hand still extended from shoving a hospital aide. The aide staggers backward. A wheelchair rocks on its wheels, empty now. And a man everyone thought could never walk again, stands on his own 2 feet. Someone drops a clipboard. The sound echoes like a gunshot. A nurse whispers, "Oh my God." The woman's face drains of all color. Her mouth opens, searching for words that won't come. Her eyes dart from the empty wheelchair to the man standing before her, then to the dozen witnesses watching this impossible moment unfold. And then he speaks. Calm. Quiet. Devastating. "I could always stand. But to understand how we got here, to understand why a billionaire would fake his own paralysis and watch his world crumble from a wheelchair, we need to go back to the beginning. This is a story about love and lies. About what happens when power disappears and masks fall away. About the difference between someone who loves you and someone who loves what you can give them. This is the story of Marcus Bennett. And it starts long before that wheelchair ever rolled into his life. Let me tell you something about Marcus Bennett that the business magazines never printed. Yes, he built a tech empire. Yes, his name opened doors across Silicon Valley. Yes, by the time he turned 35, his software company was worth more money than most people could imagine in 10 lifetimes. But here's what they didn't tell you. Marcus learned early that money never told the truth about people. Money hid the truth. It covered it up like makeup over a scar. Only when the money stopped working, only then, did people show you who they really were. Marcus knew this because he'd lived both sides. He remembered the cramped apartments that smelled like old heating vents and someone else's cooking. He remembered the nights hunched over a laptop with burning eyes, writing code until the sun came up because he couldn't afford to stop. He remembered eating ramen for the 3rd night in a row and telling himself it was temporary. It was temporary. He made it out. But the climb taught him things he wished he didn't know. Friends who couldn't keep up started making excuses not to hang out. Mentors who helped him early suddenly wanted ownership of his ideas, his company, his future. The higher he climbed, the lonelier it got. By the time Marcus had real wealth, he'd already lost count of the people who'd walked away. Not because he changed. Because his success made them uncomfortable. Or greedy. Or jealous. Trust became the most expensive thing he couldn't buy. So when Sophia Chambers walked into his life at a charity gala in downtown Los Angeles, Marcus was already watching. Already careful. Already wondering what she wanted. Sophia was perfect. And that was the problem. Her laugh sounded natural, but never lasted too long. Her warmth felt genuine, but always matched the temperature of the room. She dressed like she knew exactly which event she was attending before the invitation even arrived. She loved how doors opened around Marcus. She loved the restaurants that cleared tables for them, the events they got invited to, the way people's voices changed when he walked in. What she never asked about was how those doors got built. The years of work. The sacrifices. The nights he almost gave up. When Marcus proposed on a beach in Malibu at sunset, because that's what you do when you have money and you want the moment to look like it should, people clapped. But they clapped for Sophia first. Like she'd accomplished something by saying yes. Like she was doing him a favor. At dinners, strangers asked her about seating arrangements and timing, treating her like she was the real host. Marcus watched how she corrected servers when they got her order slightly wrong. How she smiled through it, sweet and sharp at the same time. Small things. Easy to ignore if you wanted peace. Marcus didn't want peace. He wanted truth. So he noticed when she positioned herself at the center of photos. When she spoke for him in conversations without asking if that's what he wanted. When she talked about their success as if she'd been there for the coding and the pitching and the sleepless nights. He noticed. And he filed it away. Because Marcus Bennett had survived too many betrayals to ignore the warning signs. Not again. Never again. But he needed to be sure. The accident happened on a rainy Thursday night on the Pacific Coast Highway. At least, that's what the news said. Tech billionaire Marcus Bennett critical after high-speed crash. Spinal trauma leaves software mogul paralyzed. Doctors say recovery unlikely. The footage played on every channel. Twisted metal. Emergency lights painting the wet pavement red and blue. Reporters standing in the rain, speaking in somber tones about tragedy and how quickly life can change. What nobody knew, what nobody could have guessed, was that Marcus had designed every moment. The crash was real enough. But the paralysis? The doctor's grim diagnosis? The wheelchair? All of it was theater. Marcus had paid the right people, staged the right evidence, created the perfect illusion. Because he needed to know something that no amount of money could tell him. He needed to know who would stay when the power left the room. So he sat in that wheelchair at Cedars Medical Center and watched his world shift. Investors called meetings to discuss the transition. Translation: they were already planning to replace him. Invitations to events stopped coming. Old friends who texted daily suddenly went quiet. And Sophia? Sophia cried beautifully for the cameras. She held his hand whenever reporters showed up, her face painted with grief and determination. She told them that love wasn't about convenience. That commitment meant staying when things got hard. Behind closed doors, her questions told a different story. How long will this last? Who's going to run the companies now? Will we still be invited to things? Marcus answered carefully. He had time now. Nothing but time. Time to watch. Time to listen. Time to see what people did when they thought the power was gone forever. There's something nobody tells you about becoming invisible. It doesn't happen all at once. It's gradual, like watching the sun set. You don't notice each moment the light fades, but suddenly you look up and it's dark. At Cedars Medical Center, Marcus Bennett watched himself disappear. Nurses came in and out of his room, speaking in hushed, pitying voices. Such a shame, one whispered to another. A billionaire reduced to this. They shook their heads like they were mourning someone who'd already died. Doctors stopped looking at him when they discussed his case. They talked to Sophia instead, over his head, around him, as if the wheelchair had erased not just his legs but his voice too. Staff asked her permission for things. His schedule, his medications, his therapy times. Nobody asked Marcus. At first, he wanted to speak up, to remind them he was right there, that his mind worked fine, that he could still make decisions about his own life. But then he realized, this was the test. This was exactly what he needed to see. So he stayed quiet. He watched. And what he saw. Sophia's visits changed like seasons. At first, spring, she arrived early, makeup perfect, voice soft and caring. She made sure nurses saw her devotion. Made sure other visitors noticed how she stayed by his side. We're in this together, she told people. For better or worse, right? Then summer faded to fall. She started checking her phone during their conversations. Scrolling through Instagram while he was mid-sentence. Sighing when his wheelchair needed adjusting, like it was an inconvenience she hadn't signed up for. She complained. About traffic. About the hospital smell. About how quiet and depressing everything felt. I miss our life, she said one afternoon, staring out the window instead of at him. Marcus said nothing. Just noted the word our, and how she used it. Then came the joke. The one that cut deeper than she probably intended. I didn't exactly sign up to be a nurse, you know? She laughed after saying it. Like that made it okay. Like humor erased the cruelty underneath. Marcus didn't laugh. He just watched her laugh alone, the sound dying awkwardly in the sterile room. Soon, she was leaving earlier, then skipping days entirely. When she did show up, her perfume smelled different. Expensive and strong, like she'd been somewhere crowded. Somewhere with chandeliers and champagne. She talked about the galas she attended alone now. The fundraisers. The dinners. People keep asking about you, she said, like it was exhausting. I have to explain the situation over and over. It's like, I'm representing both of us now. The word burden never left her mouth. But Marcus heard it in every sentence. Behind her back, the hospital staff whispered. Marcus heard them in the hallways late at night when they thought he was sleeping. She seems restless. Did you see what she was wearing? Like she's going somewhere better. She never actually looks at him. Just talks at him. I give it 3 months. Marcus lay awake those nights, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the hospital. Distant monitors beeping. Carts rolling past. Someone coughing down the hall. He thought about his mother. How she'd worked double shifts as a nurse herself, raising him alone. How she never once treated care like a burden. How she'd come home exhausted and still ask about his day, still make dinner, still tuck him in. His mother taught him that love was a verb. An action. Not a performance for an audience. Sophia was performing. And Marcus was documenting every scene. The test had begun. And already, he was learning more than he wanted to know. But there was one person at Cedars Medical Center who moved differently through his world. One person who didn't perform. Her name was Maria Santos, and she was about to change everything. Maria Santos didn't announce herself when she entered a room. She didn't need to. While Sophia's heels clicked like drumbeats demanding attention, Maria moved quietly in sneakers worn soft from double shifts. While Sophia's perfume arrived 5 seconds before she did, Maria smelled like the hospital soap from washing her hands between patients. She pushed Marcus's wheelchair differently than the other aides. Not rushing, not checking her watch. She adjusted her pace to match his breathing, somehow knowing without asking when to slow down or when he needed a moment. And she talked to him like he was human. "My neighbor's dog got loose again this morning," she said one Tuesday, wheeling him back from physical therapy. "Third time this month. I swear that dog's planning an escape like it's some kind of prison break." Marcus found himself almost smiling. Maybe he just wants adventure. Maybe, Maria laughed. Or maybe he's tired of the same view every day. Can't blame him for that. It was ordinary conversation, the kind most people took for granted. But Marcus hadn't had ordinary in months. Everyone else spoke to him in careful, pitying tones. Or they didn't speak to him at all. Maria talked about her bills. Her siblings who needed new shoes before school started. The broken air conditioner in her apartment that her landlord kept promising to fix. Real things. Human things. When doctors came in and started discussing Marcus's condition over his head, Maria did something remarkable. She waited. Let them finish their medical speech. Then she looked at Marcus and asked quietly, "What do you think about that?" Such a simple question. But it changed the entire energy in the room. It reminded everyone that Marcus Bennett was still there. Still capable of thoughts and opinions. Still worthy of being asked. The doctors would blink, suddenly remembering. "Oh yes, of course. Mr. Bennett, what are your thoughts?" When visitors came and positioned themselves to talk around Marcus instead of to him, Maria would subtly reposition his wheelchair, moving him back to the center of the conversation where he belonged. Small acts, but they mattered more than she knew. Sophia noticed. Oh, she noticed. Her eyes lingered on Maria longer each visit, watching how Maria adjusted Marcus's blanket without making a show of it. How she handed him water before he asked. How she remembered he liked his coffee black, no sugar. One afternoon, Sophia arrived late, heels announcing her annoyance with every step, and stopped cold when she saw Maria carefully positioning a pillow behind Marcus's back. The smile Sophia wore looked like it had been painted on with a shaking hand. "You're here again," Sophia said. Not a question. An accusation dressed up as observation. Maria straightened. "Just making sure Mr. Bennett's comfortable." How thoughtful. The word came out sharp enough to cut. "You seem to be around quite a lot. Is that normal? For your position?" "I help where I'm needed, ma'am." Sophia's eyes narrowed. "I'm sure you do." After Maria left, Sophia pulled a chair close to Marcus's wheelchair. Too close. Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow felt louder than shouting. "People are starting to talk," she said. "About what?" Marcus asked, keeping his voice neutral. "About boundaries. About what's appropriate. About..." She gestured vaguely toward the door Maria had just exited through. "About how it looks." "How it looks?" Sophia's jaw tightened. "Don't play dumb, Marcus. That woman is always around you. Always touching you. Always acting like she's something more than hired help. She's a healthcare aide doing her job." "Is she?" Sophia stood abruptly. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like she's getting confused about her role here." Marcus said nothing. Just filed this conversation away with all the others. Evidence mounting. Patterns forming. That night, after Sophia left early, claiming a headache but smelling like a new perfume, Marcus lay in the dark and thought about the difference between the two women. One performed care like it was a play, and she was angling for a good review. The other just cared. One needed an audience to be kind. The other was kind when nobody was watching. It was becoming clear which one was real. The tension grew like a storm forming on the horizon. You could feel it in the air, that electric charge before lightning strikes. Sophia's patience, already wearing thin, began to fray in public now. She snapped at nurses who took too long responding. She corrected doctors mid-sentence about Marcus's preferences. Preferences she got wrong half the time. She spoke for him in conversations, cutting him off when he tried to answer questions himself. "What Marcus means is," she'd say, as if translation was required. People noticed. A visiting specialist paused after one such interruption, glancing at Marcus with uncertain eyes before continuing to address Sophia anyway. and in turn looked uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot. A nurse caught Marcus's eyes once, held his gaze for a moment, then looked away quickly. The power in the room was flowing toward the loudest voice. And Sophia knew it. She started making decisions without consulting him. Rescheduling his therapy. Canceling meetings with his physical therapist. Telling staff what he would and wouldn't do. He's tired today, she'd announce, even when Marcus felt fine. He doesn't want visitors, she'd tell people waiting in the hall, without asking if that was true. He needs his rest, she'd say, ushering people out while Marcus sat there, silent, watching. And through it all, Maria Santos remained steady. Same quiet competence. Same gentle respect. Same way of treating Marcus like a person instead of a problem to be managed. That consistency, that unwavering humanity, seemed to irritate Sophia more than any mistake could have. Because you can't compete with genuine. You can only expose yourself trying. The hospital became a pressure cooker. Staff felt it. Patients sensed it. Even visitors noticed something was building. Marcus felt it most of all. Sitting in that wheelchair, watching two versions of humanity play out in front of him. One grew louder and more desperate. The other remained calm and consistent. He knew something was going to break. The test was reaching its conclusion. He just didn't know when. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. Shift change at Cedars Medical Center. The hallways were crowded with nurses heading home, doctors making evening rounds, visitors clutching balloons and teddy bears. Phones buzzing. Conversations layered over each other. The kind of public space where everyone's too busy to pay attention. Until they weren't. Maria was wheeling Marcus back from radiology. They'd been talking about nothing important. Something about a movie she wanted to see, but couldn't afford the ticket for. Marcus had been half listening, comfortable in the ordinary rhythm of her voice. Then the heels stopped. That sharp, hard sound of expensive shoes hitting linoleum with force. Click. Click. Stop. The sound cut through the hallway noise like a knife. Sophia stood blocking their path. Her face was composed, but her eyes were wild. That look people get when they've been holding something in for too long and the dam is about to break. We need to talk, she said. Not to Marcus. To Maria. Maria stopped the wheelchair smoothly. Ma'am, why are you always here? Sophia's voice was controlled. Too controlled. The kind of calm that's actually screaming. Every time I visit, you're hovering around him. Is this really part of your job description? People nearby slowed their pace. Not stopping exactly, but not quite moving along either. Mr. Bennett requested my assistance, Maria said evenly. I'm doing my job. Sophia laughed. Once. Short and sharp like breaking glass. How convenient. Mr. Bennett requested you specifically. She smiled, but it was all teeth and no warmth. I'm sure he did. I'm sure you're just doing your job. But here's the thing. People are starting to get ideas. Ma'am, I don't know what you. Don't play innocent with me. Sophia stepped closer. Her voice dropped but somehow carried further. You're confusing kindness with position. You're crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed. And replacement nurses? They never last. The word replacement hung in the air like smoke. A doctor paused mid-step. Two interns nearby stopped pretending not to listen. A visitor with flowers stood frozen, watching. Maria's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Just stood there, hands still on the wheelchair handles, taking the verbal assault with quiet dignity. That silence, that refusal to fight back or defend herself, seemed to enrage Sophia even more. You need to understand something, Sophia continued, leaning in close enough that Marcus could see the muscles in her neck tensing. You are the help. You don't matter here. You're temporary, replaceable, and you're not family. Still, Maria said nothing. And that's when Sophia snapped. She reached out and shoved Maria. Hard. Both hands against Maria's shoulders, pushing her backward with enough force to make her stumble. Not enough to knock her down. But enough. Enough to assert dominance. Enough to put her in her place. Enough to show everyone who had the real power here. The wheelchair rocked from the impact. Someone gasped. Someone else swore under their breath. The hallway went silent. That complete, awful silence where everyone knows something terrible just happened. Sophia stood there, breathing hard, hands still slightly raised. She looked around at the witnesses, chin up, daring anyone to challenge her. Maria caught her balance, eyes wide but not with fear. With shock. With hurt. With the recognition that cruelty had just shown its face in public. And Marcus. Marcus's hands tightened on the wheelchair armrests. He'd seen enough. Time slowed down the way it does in moments that change everything. Marcus pushed against the armrests. Steady. Deliberate. The muscles in his arms flexing with strength that shouldn't have existed in someone paralyzed. He rose. The wheelchair rolled back slightly. Empty now. A prop that had served its purpose. His shoes met the floor with a soft sound that somehow echoed louder than Sophia's heels ever had. He stood. Straight. Steady. Whole. The hallway froze. A nurse dropped her clipboard. It clattered against the floor, the only sound in the sudden vacuum of silence. An intern's mouth fell open, literally gaped. Someone whispered, "What? What the?" Sophia turned. Slowly, like she already knew what she'd see, but her brain refused to process it. The color drained from her face, and Marcus watched it happen, watched the blood leave her cheeks as understanding crashed into her like a wave. Her lips parted, searching for words. For a joke. For an explanation that would make this make sense. Her eyes moved from the empty wheelchair to Marcus standing tall, then around to the dozen people watching. Witnessing. Recording this moment in their memories. "Marcus!" Her voice cracked. "What? How are you?" He didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. "I can stand," he said simply. "I always could." Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. "The crash was real," Marcus continued, his voice calm and clear. "The injuries weren't. The paralysis was staged. All of it. Staged." Someone echoed the word, disbelieving. "A test," Marcus said, looking directly at Sophia now. "To see what happened when the power left the room. To see who stayed when they thought it was gone forever." That word, test, moved through the corridor like electricity through water. Sophia shook her head rapidly. No, you're joking. This is some kind of sick joke." "The joke," Marcus said quietly, "was thinking you loved me." I do love you." "Marcus, please, you're humiliating me in front of all these people." "The behavior was real," he cut her off. "What you did just now, that was real. The complaints, the resentment, the way you spoke to Maria, the way you shoved her, that was all real." Sophia's hands trembled. "I was stressed. I was scared. You don't understand what it's been like." "I understand perfectly." Marcus took one step forward. Just one. But it carried the weight of 6 months of watching and waiting. "I understand that cruelty shows itself when power thinks no one important is watching. I understand that real love doesn't disappear when convenience does. I understand that you never loved me. You loved what I could give you. That's not fair. Love," Marcus said, his voice gentle but final, "doesn't shove people aside. It doesn't diminish them. It doesn't treat care like a burden or kindness like a threat." Security was already approaching, moving through the crowd. Someone had called them, maybe a nurse, maybe a doctor who'd seen enough. Sophia's face crumpled. Not with sadness. With panic. With the realization that her world was collapsing in real time, and everyone was watching it happen. "Marcus, please. Please don't do this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was wrong, I was." Her voice broke. She reached for him. He stepped back. "Ma'am," a security guard said gently, "we need you to come with us." No, you don't understand." "Marcus, tell them. Tell them this is a misunderstanding." But Marcus said nothing. Just watched as security guided her toward the exit. Not roughly. Just firmly. The way you escort someone who no longer belongs. Her heels scraped against the floor. That expensive sound she'd weaponized for months now sounded desperate. Broken. "Marcus! Marcus!" Her voice echoed down the hallway until a door closed and cut it off. Silence rushed back in. The crowd remained frozen, processing what they'd just witnessed. Phones were out now, of course they were. This moment would be online within the hour. Millionaire fakes paralysis. Exposes gold digger fiancé. The headlines were already writing themselves. But Marcus didn't care about that. He turned to Maria. She stood where Sophia had shoved her, hands clasped in front of her, eyes glistening but not crying. Steady. Still steady. He walked toward her, and the crowd parted like water. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. Maria nodded. "I'm fine. Are you?" Such a simple question. But it carried everything. In 6 months, Sophia never asked if he was okay. Not really. Not in a way that expected an honest answer. "I am now," Marcus said. He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Thank you. For treating me like a person when everyone else saw a problem. For asking my opinion. For not making me invisible. You don't have to thank me for that. Maria said softly. I was just being human. That word again. Human. It landed in Marcus's chest with more weight than any business deal or investment return ever had. Being human. That's all it took. And it was the rarest thing he'd found. The hallway slowly came back to life. Whispered conversations. Footsteps resuming. The hospital returning to its rhythm. But everything had changed. Marcus didn't leave Cedars Medical Center that day. He could have. He could have walked out, made a statement, disappeared into the mansion he owned in the hills above Los Angeles. Instead, he sat back down in the wheelchair. Not because he needed it, but because the moment wasn't about spectacle or triumph. It was about truth. And truth doesn't need a parade. Doctors returned to his room, different now. Careful. Eyes meeting his instead of sliding past. Conversations lowered when they spoke, no longer talking over him, but to him. Respect recalibrated in real time. Hospital administration showed up within an hour. Apologizing in rehearsed corporate tones. Concerned about liability. About the incident. About how this reflected on their facility. Marcus waved them off. No one here did anything wrong. Except the person who already left. In a quiet room later that evening, Maria brought him coffee. Black, no sugar. Remembered. I should get back to work, she said, setting the cup down carefully. Maria, Marcus said. Sit for a minute. She hesitated, then lowered herself into the visitor's chair. The one Sophia used to occupy before she started leaving early. You didn't do anything wrong, Marcus said. You did everything right. You treated me with dignity when I was invisible to everyone else. That's not nothing. That's everything. Maria's eyes glistened again. I don't understand why people are so different when they think you can't give them anything anymore. Because, Marcus said quietly, most people love what you can do for them. Very few love who you actually are. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. The kind of silence that only exists between people who've been through something together. Outside the room, the hospital continued its endless rhythm. Monitors beeping. Carts rolling. Lives being saved and saved again. Later that night, Marcus's phone buzzed. Text messages. Voicemails. Sophia calling, texting, leaving messages that cracked and broke halfway through. She blamed stress. She blamed fear. She blamed the situation. She blamed everything except herself. I was scared of losing you, one message said. I didn't know how to handle it. Please, Marcus. Please let me explain. But there was nothing left to explain. The test had revealed everything that needed revealing. Marcus deleted the messages. Not out of cruelty. Out of acceptance. Some relationships are meant to end. Some people come into your life to teach you what love isn't. And sometimes the hardest lesson is learning that someone you wanted to be right for you simply wasn't. The next morning, Marcus finally left the hospital. Not in a wheelchair. On his own 2 feet. He said goodbye to the nurses who'd whispered about him, but ultimately treated him with kindness. He thanked the doctors who'd played along with his test, who'd helped him understand what human nature looked like when power disappeared. And he said goodbye to Maria Santos. What will you do now? She asked. Keep building, Marcus said. Keep learning. Keep looking for what's real. And love? Maria asked quietly. Will you try again? Marcus thought about that. About Sophia's performance. About the difference between someone who stays for status and someone who stays because they see you. Yeah, he said finally. But differently. Smarter. I'll look for someone who shows up when the lights are off. Who asks questions that matter. Who doesn't need an audience to be kind. Maria smiled. Those people exist. I know, Marcus said. I met one. They said goodbye in the hospital lobby. No drama. No promises of staying in touch. Just 2 humans who'd shared a difficult truth and came out better for it. As Marcus walked toward the parking lot, he thought about his mother. About how she used to say that hard times don't build character. They reveal it. She was right. The wheelchair had revealed everything. Who loved him. Who loved his power. Who stayed when things got hard. Who ran when the cameras stopped rolling. The test was over. The truth was told. And Marcus Bennett walked into the California sunshine a wiser, lonelier, more honest version of himself. He'd lost a fiancée. But he'd found something more valuable, clarity. Sometimes, that's the best trade you can make. This story reminds us that real love shows up in the quiet moments. It doesn't shove people aside or treat kindness as a threat. It doesn't disappear when power does. Real love stays. Real love sees you. Not what you can provide, but who you actually are. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is test what's real, even when the truth breaks your heart. Thank you for listening to this story. If it touched you, made you think, or reminded you of what really matters in relationships, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, stay human, stay kind, stay true.